What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Worlds 2022 for another Group A bout between Cloud9 and T1. But before we dive into this matchup and break it all down, we have to do something very special here, and that is celebrate the GOAT of our game. FLICKR here steps onto stage to play his 100th game at Worlds.
Come on! 100 games!
First and only player to hit triple digits when it comes to games played at Worlds.
That's
and
crazy.
This guy is dominant in almost every single scenario that he gets placed in. So again, just want to celebrate him as he gears up for a matchup against Jensen. Now this Cloud9, this T1 matchup is a historic one. Unfortunately for North American Cloud9, not one that historically goes in Cloud9's favor.
They have gotten out of both groups they've been in with T1. But they're 0-4 against T1. So it's they beat the people that T1 beats too.
But you know what? If we get out, I'll take it. I'll go 0-6 against T1 if it means we get out of the group. But at this point, I fear for Cloud9, given the way that the groups have already gone for them, that they might actually have to take a game off of T1 somewhere in order to get it.
And I think the best way for them to try and do that as well
is to clap FLICKR. Yeah, clap FLICKR, it's a good way.
But 6 years different in the tweets.
I want to see a very different draft coming through from C9, right? The thing that really impressed me with them in their playoffs, in their finals specifically, was how good they were at getting to the objective first, setting up ahead of 100 Thieves, and then being able to find these great team fights through their drafts as well. I want to see them go back to that. I don't want any more Fiora. We had the same conversation earlier on, 400 Thieves. I want to see them go back to this great team fighting that won them the championship in the LCS.
And you look at these fights, Fudge is able to pull the trigger on the invades, as is Blaber. Zven is supporting people. Jensen's free to kind of do what he wants and disrupt the enemy AD carry. They were so good at fighting around objectives, partially empowered by the team comps. And this is just another clip from the same game.
Yeah, but I love the call out to team fighting because that's what brought them here. And while the meta isn't exactly the same as it was when we were there in Chicago for the finals, team fighting itself is still very much a possibility. So it's just about finding the answers that work for you within this current meta to bring that fight over to T1.
And it's a toughie because for C9, I think it is still an uphill battle. But what we saw against Fnatic is that T1 is still a team that in their current form has very clearly defined weaknesses. I think they have a very specific read on their drafts, which they keep going back to. And we have seen both sides of the coin. Against EDG, they didn't just win, like they clapped them. But then when they were playing against Fnatic, the exact same thing happened.
Yeah, you would call them, you were talking about them before, the domestic struggles that they had possibly, not necessarily being consistent in draft. And if things don't go to plan early game, then you can see the cohesion or the glue of the team composition isn't there, because once they're behind, Fnatic was able to read every team fight like a book.
Yeah, and also just the inability for FLICKR to kind of get those big leads that we saw against EDG. He was trying his best here, but I think because you saw Fnatic getting these early leads, being able to dictate the pace of the game a lot more, it made it very difficult for FLICKR to play in the same style he had, which was, hey, you know, I'm going to go push mid lane. That's going to give me the avenue of attack I need in towards these dragon fights. And I think this is what we're going to have to see if T1 can now find that success here against Cloud9.
So for both squads, a lot of talk about style and specifically compositions that support the styles we want to see these teams playing. So I wanted to play another little game. What we're going to do here is we're going to rate the drafts that we've seen out of T1 and Cloud9 so far, but we're going to rate them out of how many T1s or C9s that they are worth on a scale from 1 to 5. So let's go ahead and pull up the first draft here. We're going to start, I believe, with a T1 draft against EDG. As our T1 representative, Chronicler is going to go ahead and go at it. He's going to rate 1 to 5 T1s. Where did they land?
So with this one, I'm going to say 4 out of 5 T1s. Personally, I think that it has everything. It has very strong individual lanes. You have a lot of carry potential. But if the comp falls behind early, there isn't really a front line to try and play through your bot lane. And that's why, as a draft, I'd rate it maybe a 2 out of 5. I think that they won that game because they stomped. If they didn't, it would have been a very quick
Because that's the distinction here. T1 is consistent in the way they draft, so how T1 it is, but the debate is whether or not the drafts suck or not. So you're on the side that it's just not a good draft.
T1 is like, yeah, well, that's about what we wanted, but we're a little bit more concerned or a little bit more trepidation on it. Let's go to T1's day 2 draft and see what they brought to the table the second time around. This one against Fnatic, where they took the loss.
Ooh, this one is a toughie because I want to go for 3 out of 5. I think that this one has a little bit more leeway in terms of T1s, and it's going to go for me as an overall draft. I'd still say 2 out of 5. I didn't really enjoy it. I think that what we've been seeing is that The scaling elements right now are just really, really strong. There are not a lot of games that are decided very early on, and I think that a lot of the fans are kind of waiting for T1 to kind of slow it down, which I don't think it will do.
Can I do
think they're
C9
gonna keep
drafts?
dropping
Absolutely,
the
you
same
can
way.
do the C9 drafts.
Yeah,
Let's get C9's day one draft up onto the screen. Let's see how Jat decides to weigh in on these.
I haven't been pleased with C9 drafts. So for me, a C9 draft is something where Blaber has a lot of ability to make plays, where Berserker isn't able to hyper carry, and where Fudge plays team composition glue. So if we can pull up that C9 draft from day one or from day two, I feel like they weren't necessarily great. So here they're the team on the left. This one, their two, quote, carries, like Blaber and Berserker, are on Misfortune and Sejuani. Jensen is on the Blanc, and they did have to like a Fiora-ish Fudge kind of gluing to try and get split push. This is like one C9 out of 5. Like, it barely fits. I think Jensen LeBlanc is the only thing that fits here. And objectively, it's also like a 1 out of 5 draft on my board right here. So just not good. And let's get to their draft on the next day, because the things that would be stronger for C9 draft is, again, Blaber on something that can definitely go in and make plays, and Jensen on a control mage. Here, they at least have the control mage. They have the Aphelios Tom, which definitely works, but they don't have the glue in the top lane. So that was like a 3 out of 5 C9's draft.
Okay.
And I think objectively, this game was a little bit like chance of being closer. So I'd give it a 3 out of 5 as well. But overall, I just want to see them commit more to what worked in playoffs, as we've talked about.
Trending in the right direction, that is then with Cloud9. But I know, Dag, that you and I, top of the day, one of the things that we are very aligned on, especially when it comes to some of the Western teams, is no more Fiora.
I mean,
and that is one of the key points that Jat had an issue with. What was that?
There's a sign poking up behind you that was saying the same thing.
No more
I feel like
Fiora?
there's a lot of people that are on the same page, because
Listen to the fans.
I think it's split identity, right? You see a Misfortune, it's like, hey, we want to go for big team fights. We want to be able to take fights. And then it's like, oh, well, now we've got, you know, Kali Fiora. Like, how the hell are you supposed to have a front line for that? And same when you look across things like the Victor Aphelios, you're like, cool, let's slap an Ornn in there. We have a Fiora, thumbs up, let's go. It's like, it doesn't really work out. You want to make sure you've got that strong team fight to enable those carries.
All right, well, we do think a lot of this is going to hinge on the comps that the teams are able to secure for themselves. But we got one more piece of business to get to, and that is, of course, the MasterCard fan predictions for this game. They are still 100% hit rate on their predictions, and the fans are giving it squarely to T1 here.
Boo!
Come on.
The other fans.
no.
The other fans. Yeah, we got the 19% in this house.
The 19% is just about the capacity of this theater. I don't even really know. Well, there you have it. The fans haven't missed yet. We'll see if Cloud9 can make them liars as we hand it over to QuickShot, Lyric, and Azale to take over for the rest of the day.
Thank you so much. Frankly, I don't want to say anything. I just want to listen to this crowd. The volume is electric. Hello, ladies, gentlemen, and everybody else. My name is QuickShot, joined by Azale. Look, actually, Azale, how does this feel? Is this hopium?
It feels amazing,
Is this
man.
hopium?
You gotta love the LCS faithful here. We've been having a rough start, but surely no one beats the LCS 7 times in a row. It's our game, baby. Let's go!
Look, QuickShot, I gotta say, I might represent the LPL. I still do come from NA, though, so I gotta say, I feel like I'm on the side of the crowd.
That's definitely the case. New York City! Are you ready for Cloud9 to take on T1? We are moments away from picks and bans. And Azale, I'm going to come to you first, because the discussion around Fiora top is both mirrored by our fans' sides as well as the answers. What are you expecting from this draft, as well as what you've seen from T1?
I'm expecting a pivot from C9 back towards more what they... Dance with the girl that brought you, kind of, so to speak, right? You know, do what really worked for them in playoffs. I think we've seen a lot of the NA teams made a hard pivot away from what they played on 12-15, thinking a lot of these champions were dead, but we've seen a lot of success from Poppy. We've seen a lot of success from Sivir Yumi. A lot of these picks that C9 were so incredible with, I think still work now, and I'd like to see them move back towards team fighting, focusing on that, and away from the Fiora, which sadly enough, LCS has never won with internationally ever. We have 0 wins with Fiora in international play. So I think I've seen enough of that.
That is definitely not what you want to be looking towards. And I think one thing we've seen as well is some teams opting into just very low engage. Cloud9 actually did that in their last game. And again, having those tools, having the point and click CC to be able to start a fight on your terms, and then if you fall behind, at least be able to walk into areas you've no control over, would be a huge boon for them.
Lyric, just a moment ago, Faker's face was on screen. He was smiling. It was the smile that only the unkillable Demon King can pull off. I have this voice in my head saying, I pity the fool that faces FLICKR after a loss. How much do you think he and T1 are going to be looking to bounce back after the defeat to Fnatic yesterday?
I think T1 should be feeling pretty good because we've seen their strength has still been strong at the tournament, even when they lost to Fnatic. Their top side has been absolutely incredible, and if they can set Zeus up for success, I feel like coming in today against C9, they're going to be feeling pretty good.
Well, I'm also really interested to see, what adaptations, if any, will there be from T1, because they're playing a little bit differently than people were expecting for them, right? I think most people saw FLICKR as more of a facilitator for the side lanes coming into this event. People were expecting to see a lot of the Gallios, the Lissandras, these types of picks to really set up Zeus as well as Keria and Gumayusi. Now that it's back to kind of engaged meta, people were thinking it's going to be that. And we've gotten back-to-back Akali games. One absolutely went off, was dominant in that game. The second, not as much. So I'm curious if it is just going to be FLICKR continuing to play those aggressive assassin-type picks, or if he'll move back to more of a facilitator role.
I think he definitely has to pivot, especially since we've seen their bot lane struggle. I mean, Gumayusi was getting hard targeted the other day, and FLICKR's going to need to make sure that doesn't happen again today.
And let's remind everyone that this is Group A's first round robin being concluded right now. With the fact that EDG just took down Fnatic, we're about to see the third and final game of round robin, and the Caitlyn is banned away, followed up by the Yuumi.
Yeah, it's a really important game for both teams. If T1 were to win, they would pull even with EDG and Fnatic. If C9 are to win, they would be only one game away from first, going into that second round robin, so definitely a big one. And Fiora, not going to be played in this one, so all NA fans breathe a sigh of relief.
And I think it's just a huge point when you are going up against T1. And I like what T1 are following up here, taking away something like the Sejuani. When I'm looking at them, Oner has lent more heavily on some of these playmaking junglers like the Lee Sin, even leaning towards things like the Viego. So take away the simple, easy-to-execute champions that let Cloud9 fall back on the team fighting.
I've got this horrible feeling that I like. I think banning Sejuani against the North American squad is a good thing, because I think they've had a little bit of an infatuation with that.
Absolutely. I mean, I think there's been a much higher priority on MF, on Fiora, and Sejuani for the NA teams, compared to kind of the other scrim bubbles that we're seeing around the world. I would rather see that Sejuani priority be on something like the Maokai, move towards that, which has been really, really strong. And I do think Maokai is very first pickable here, unless T1 are going to ban it away. Azir also very high prio, so I wouldn't mind seeing Jensen even just slap down at Azir right now.
Aatrox feels open too.
So strong in the meta. I think those are the two major options. Fudge in NA has preferred to go more in the counter matchups to the Aatrox, and I think that's kind of why we were seeing the Fiora. So I do expect the Azir, and it does make sense. He feels comfortable in that. With Fiora banned out, I would think he might go towards a Jax or a Camille as an answer, something that has a little bit more of an ability to 5v5 than the Fiora that we saw from him in the first couple games.
Yeah, and I'm curious actually to see what T1 answer with here in terms of mid lane, because we've seen FLICKR, he's been going to bring out the Assassins. He picked the Akali into the Azir in their first matchup. We have things like the LeBlanc, which we know FLICKR's famous for, or could lean back into the Victor, which we've been seeing come more and more in the recent days. But there's Oner locking in the Viego, which we've already seen him on.
Honestly, I would love a Poppy here from Blaber. I mean, I think Poppy is incredibly strong. You already have two dash champions. You already have a fair bit of physical damage. I think it can pair very, very well. Gnar would seem like a perfectly fine answer into the Aatrox. Definitely not a lane counter by any means, but something that can hopefully absorb that pressure and then look to 5v5. But I do think Poppy fits really well into the C9 draft and denies a lot of the picks that we've been seeing as well. Jax was that earlier option I was talking about. Jax, Camille are things that he likes to go to.
One of the things I love about both of these top laners, Zeus and Fudge, both of them only have one Aatrox game this entire summer. And this will be the second Jax. So you get the Poppy as well as the Jax as well.
So I mean, everything as far as I would predict for C9 going pretty according to plan. We'll just have to see if Fudge can really make it work here. This is a guy that has extreme confidence in himself. He said in an interview that he is the NA GOAT. Everyone just doesn't know it yet. He's going to get there. FLICKR, though, moving back to Lissandra, so this is more of one of those facilitating picks. And it can allow them to have some very powerful skirmish power on the top side. When you look at their 3v3, their 2v2s, can be pretty nasty in the early game with the amount of lockdown that this three-man squad has.
And this Lissandra, 7th time played this summer since MSI. Only 3 wins for FLICKR, 3 losses. Tiny bit of hopium there, New York.
Yeah, still though, I actually like it into the context of what C9 have picked up so far. Not going to be able to be stopped by the Poppy with the W, as well as just very hard to pick things like the Akali we've seen him leaning into when the Poppy can cancel his dashes, and the Victor really hasn't been working out too well. So I like that T1 are leaning on hard early prio and playmaking.
Now, Zell, what are you anticipating from this bottom lane? I remember when we first saw Cloud9 talking about Sven's champion pool. Can he play those engagements? Nautilus looked okay in the laning phase, but then sort of fell apart later. I wonder what we're going to see today.
I mean, I definitely think he would be looking back towards, one of those engaged champions, because I think some of the most powerful enchanters in the current meta are already banned out. We see the Renata taken away. We see the Yuumi taken away. Tom Kench is another comfort thing. So I do think we're likely looking towards some hard engage. I think C9's comp needs it as well. So Nautilus to me does fit in. Perhaps pairing along something like an Aphelios or something along those lines, I think could work pretty well.
I actually think T1 are actually going to look for a bit of an Aphelios lane themselves. That's why I like Cloud9 taking away the Thresh. I think for T1 leaning into something that not only has, a bit of range to play with the Calibrum, but brings some mid-game power once you get something like a Gale Force online, would be incredibly strong, since it looks like no matter how you pivot your draft now from T1, that Cloud9 definitely have the scaling angle.
Yeah, they definitely do, but I mean, Cloud9 does need engage in their comp. They don't have any sort of hard engage unless they're going to commit more to split push, which I don't really want to see from them, because it really hasn't been working out. So they do need a go button. They do have good scaling. Tristana would be interesting if it's paired alongside something, that does have hard engage. You can even threaten the all-in these lanes. I'm just kind of curious to see what he would actually go towards, because we are kind of stepping outside of Zven's comfort a little bit.
I mean, we're taking a look at this Leona. This would be the first support Leona all year long for Zven. I believe professionally speaking as well. It is paired with the Tristana. It is what you were looking for, but Zven needs to deliver.
He absolutely does, and this is why I was a little bit unsure. It is definitely a meta pick, but it's not really been a Zven pick so far this year. But this guy is an absolute workhorse in solo queue, in Champions queue. He's always grinding away, so I definitely have the faith that he can have under his belt. But this feels like Kai'Sa prio, you slap down that Alistar, so much pressure now on Berserker to actually buffer the rocket jumps properly to be able to actually get out of those, because the hard engage here is incredible from T1. Alistar going in, Lissandra coming over the top, Kai'Sa ults in to follow up.
Yeah, and for that, the early and mid-game playmaking able to come out from them is huge. For the side of C9, I'm going to look at them to be able to play around the spot lane, allow Berserker to be able to get through laning phase just fine, hopefully set them up for advantages, and I mean, Fudge should be fine up in that 1v1 on top side.
Now, New York City, you see the team compositions on your screen. Who here in the Hulu Theater thinks that T1 will win this game?
No, Trevor. This is America. Who thinks C9 is going to take this game?
I have literal goosebumps from the volume in this crowd, and we've said it several times. There are battling fandoms. There are fans of every region, every team spread throughout this theater. Cloud9 on the verge of a 0-3 first round robin, but based on everything we were hoping to see from their draft, I believe they've made those adaptations from the two previous games.
Absolutely. I do like what I'm seeing out of C9 a lot more. My biggest question is how Fudge will be able to hold up in that top lane. Going up against Zeus, one of the very best top laners in the entire world. And yes, Jackson scaled nicely into this matchup, but it does feel difficult in the early levels against that Aatrox. If Zeus is actually hitting those tippers, the knockups with the Q, you can get chunked out of this lane pretty easily.
Well, we're about to load up onto the Rift. My stats team has confirmed 100% first ever professional game for Zven on Leona, and he has a tough task ahead of him. Jensen staring down FLICKR. What will happen? I'm about to... ... Can Jensen deliver on a tweet he made 6 years ago?
I feel like Jensen has to deliver in this game, because one thing I'm looking at for C9 that's pretty favorable is they should have both Prio and Min and Bot, right? As you're going to push into Lissandra early, Berserker and Zven should be expected to do on the bot lane as well, so maybe you can set up for Blaber to play heavily around these lanes early on and start setting T1's comp behind where they can't really use the fact that you want to have FLICKR moving and roaming around the map.
I love the cowbell. We're 3 or 4 blocks away from Rockefeller Plaza, calling out one of the best SNL sketches of all time. And then Keria and Zven, 2 players I will be keeping my eyes on throughout the course of this laning phase.
Absolutely, and when you call back to the can't wait to comp FLICKR tweet, it did not go well for
No,
Jensen
it
after
did
that.
not.
If I recall correctly, he was getting zoned in between the 2 towers by FLICKR after that one, so definitely looking for a better performance in this game. Blaber looking like he wants to invade and start enemy Raptors. It is a great strat on the Poppy. You clear through those Raptors very, very fast. I'm curious to see, though, will he commit to more of a split map situation, or is he just going to try to go Raptors to Raptors and try to defend his own bot side? Because those paths can be quite strong.
Yeah, I definitely feel like Blaber should head down and actually play with his bot side. Yep, he's going to be able to do it. He's going to set up Jensen quite well, but
can they actually defend it? That's kind of the question, right? Because Oner's already there.
Yeah, it looks like Oner should be able to get this one.
Blaber's going to be a little bit late to fight into the chickens. Going to be smited away, and Oner, small advantage already. Look at the mini-map. Zven has already stepped up towards that tri-bush, but that's going to push this Poppy a little bit down. And when I think back to the draft, I think back to some of the tools available to T1. If you can keep Blaber down, that Champions Kit becomes significantly less powerful, assuming the rest of T1 will be able to deliver.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, if you get too far behind, you know, you are going to be very squishy, but Poppy does always have that playmaking, and that's something that Blaber is always looking to go for. This is a guy that C9 has developed a lot of faith in over the years, and you know, it's really fun listening to them talk about Blaber, because they talk about how when Blaber makes a call, if you don't listen, Blaber's going to end. But if Blaber makes the call and you do listen and everyone goes with him, that he's almost always right with these calls. They've developed so much faith in his instinct for the game, and he's such a student of the game. It's basically, you know, all he thinks about, all he does, and he's one of those big stars for Cloud9.
And also, I just overall like what he's doing so far in the early game here with how he pathed from Raptors to Raptors, now matching Oner's pathing. But Oner might be able to find this one.
Oh, Fudge stepping forward and waiting to see what cooldown's available. Flash is still up, looking at the mini-map. Blaber's making his way into Oner's jungle. That's a leap forward. The third Q gets the knock-up. Counter-Strike will channel the stun by some time. Flashes into the tri-bush. Here comes Blaber. Leap across the ward. Fudge is out, but Summoner Spell blown. Successful game.
Yeah, and Oner, I mean, looking for one of the plays that set T1 up for success in their season, right? All about playing around their top side. That's how they're able to beat EDG on day 1 too. But with Fudge able to get out, not able to get it.
It's Grabber, baby. We're on the board.
I completely forgot for a moment.
Trevor just looks so confused. Like, why are they cheering? Did I miss something?
I was listening to it, and then I looked at the name, and I'm like, sorry, sorry, Crabber, I did forget. Now he's pushing in the wave with the help of Fudge. That will be caught by Zeus, and instant back away from Cloud9.
But absolutely needed to do that, because the wave was actually in a pretty bad spot, and even though they do force a flash, you know, Fudge was not going to be able to actually walk back in the lane and fix that himself. Blaber needed to get up there, reset the wave, allow Fudge to go back to base here and try to reset. Of course, he will have to be playing pretty safe, and I think that's one of the reasons that he does pick up a pink ward here. I think we're actually going to see him just sit on the pink ward and have that available for the leap strike on the retreat, because you are going to be pretty dependent upon that now that you are down your flash. But FLICKR moving down towards the bot. They should know he's coming.
Oh, FLICKR level 5. Tomb not available to him, but no further follow-up either. No stun from that Alistar, so Zven as well as Berserker able to back away. Just quick scan, CS is pretty even across the board, and with the exception of that flash being blown top lane, we haven't seen anyone picking up that first advantage just yet.
Yeah, still though, overall nice use of the window by FLICKR. Recall TP'd back to lane, and it gave him that potential angle to move down towards bot side. But Oner just wants to keep invading these Raptor camp because he does have the timer, knowing when Blaber did walk up to start those and finish them himself.
Blaber has no smite, so it should be Oner's as long as he's willing to actually commit that smite to it here. And I don't think we're going to see any sort of a fight over it, because FLICKR did have the move. He just cheated into that side lane brush very nicely, and that's going to keep Blaber away from actually committing to any sort of a scrap over it. So T1, you know, doing a good job here, but we are treated to a pretty even early game thus far.
Yeah, no real significant advantages. A couple 100 gold here or there. All of the lanes thus far playing fairly reserved, I think, as you would expect based on the drafts.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and I think for the C9 side, for once, it's not concerning, right? You know, when you look at the drafts in the previous 2 games, you were really feeling C9 had to snowball the game, had to get out to a big early lead. This time around, Tristana, Jax, Azir, you're chilling. As long as you're farming evenly, you're going to be pretty happy about your state in the game. But I am interested to see how Berserker handles a lot of these fights, because he didn't take cleanse, and there is a lot of CC on the other team, so he feels like an easy target.
Yeah, and I also feel like T1 have done a good job of setting this up to put C9 in an uncomfortable position. We saw the lack of vision they have now, and with FLICKR hitting level 6, this is where T1's wanting to find windows to start making these plays on the bot side.
Oh, Alcove Gamer, Alcove Gamer, Alcove Gamer! The 2-man knockup! First blood secured by Keria, and frankly, I don't even know if bonus damage was needed.
Honestly, just great patience coming out from Oner to make sure that the play worked. I mean, not even having time to use summoners there from Zven, just instantly deleted down, and now T1's bot lane in a great position.
And if I can say, it's Zven's performance I'm the most interested in terms of the scaling, the team fights, the philosophy that helped Cloud9 pick up so many of their wins. It wasn't necessarily this look for him that was stepping up. Blaber once again This time
hasn't
shadowed
been spotted
by
yet.
Keria.
Oh, Keria just now spotted them, but they saw Keria as well. So now Blaber's in an awkward spot. Here comes FLICKR. He does have ulti.
That's a very good passage over. The Claw of Doom comes out from FLICKR. Does he commit the flash? Holding on to it. Blaber gets knocked up into the air at least once and manages to waddle his way to safety. Flash blown.
It's just such a good read from Keria. He knows we made a play bot. There's going to be an answer on the top side. Blaber was looking for the invade, and Zeus was in a spot where he would be vulnerable. But because Keria is there, FLICKR has pushed mid. He makes the roam up. They cover Zeus, and they get that flash off the C9 jungler.
I also do believe that we saw Zven actually start walking towards spot lane before he reacted by going up.
Oh,
Berserker!
that was bold. That was confident from Berserker.
Well, he knew that Keria wasn't going to be there.
Yep.
He just didn't expect that Oner would be coming in for a lane gank, right? And he would win that 1v1 pretty heavily, but it's a great read. Again, T1 are foreseeing what C9 want to look towards. First, they expect the gank towards topside. Keria answers that. Then Oner says, all right, you're going to attack bot now, so he's there answering as well.
Fight, fight, fight! Infernal Chains pulls Fudge backwards. Zeus wants to eat him alive. Keep your eyes on this minimap. Keria on the Alistar has picked up those boots of mobility. Part of the reason I think we're going to see him moving around the map and supporting the other lanes.
Yeah, but we see C9 now with Oner having just made that play towards bot side, knowing that he must have camps up, now getting full control over bot side. We do have Dragon up. We haven't seen too many teams opt into early Dragon still here at the World Championship, but if C9 can start stacking these up and again, give themselves a bit of insurance later on, that would be huge for them.
It would, but I think with Poppy, it's just such a long take on the Dragon that unless they get massive bot lane or mid lane prio, I don't think they're going to be willing to actually start that up. Oner will be spotted out, and you can see that C9 is cheating up towards mid lane, trying to be there in case there is sort of a play that Zven has to answer. But for now, I think C9 really are happy to just keep farming this out. The longer this game goes, while it is at relative parity, the better they are going to be feeling. But Jensen in trouble now.
Is indeed. Emperor's Divide by so much time. But just that Glacial Path as well as the W committed, and that will allow Jensen to escape. But crucially, the ultimate is not available. Cloud9 find themselves 1,500 gold down in the space of 2 or 3 minutes, and a significant amount of that is sitting in that top lane. A large CS advantage, as well as obviously first blood. But the man on your screen, Keria, helped picked up. Zven lands the Zenith Blade, flashes out to safety. Oner and Blaber stepping forward. The verdict is held for now. Poppy Copter backs out, and the fight fizzles.
I mean, Zeus is just doing such a good job up in that top lane, and T1, has been up there to help him, right? They get up there, they force out the flash with Oner, the wave's in a bad spot, that creates an advantage for Zeus. Then, when Zeus could be actually preyed on by this gank from Blaber, Keria is there as well. They know that this guy is going to make it work if they give him the help, if they give him the coverage that he needs to really abuse the 1v1, and so far, he's doing just that.
Yeah, and again, all of this in my mind coming from Oner. Now FLICKR going to make the move, but even this comes from the fact that he went towards that mid lane, helped give him the chance to reset earlier on. It pretty much means that T1's laners will always have the first chance to move, and that they're going to continuously find these. With Rift Herald up right now, we see both teams sending all 5 members towards that top side.
That was a little scary to watch from Zeus. Just a simple pattern, trading into Fudge, clearing out that wave. We are 10 minutes in. Rift Herald is now being started off by T1. Look at the wave states. Jensen forced to catch in that middle lane. Fudge around 60-70%, and the call is a little uncertain. Back away, step forward, back away. They're not sure what they're doing.
I feel like C9 should not have even moved. Leave Berserker bot lane. Tristana is one of the best tower pushers. You could
Pretty much the best.
You could have taken 2 plates bot for free. They make the move up here. They're not really sure if they want to commit. I just didn't feel like they had the setup to actually be able to do it. And as a result, they really get nothing here. Jensen will be pushed back, so it's an easy Herald. They can drop this mid potentially to try to, push out that Azir and take away that bastion of safety, but C9 committing resources to move and they get nothing for it.
Especially now when we were just hitting on that with T1 and how Oner's played, it's pretty much always set them up to be first on the play.
Yeah.
Had C9 cross map, that actually could have disrupted that timing, so now they could have continued to look for it as Fudge. Don't look for the all-in.
I mean, right now, that's a level advantage over Fudge. 2 levels over Blaber, and that's 3-4 times I've seen Blaber show his face top, and it feels like he's saving Fudge's life, just showing a presence to dissuade a dive.
Yeah, and I mean, we saw C9 trying to look for the lane gank, but even regarding that, yes, he won.
Here comes FLICKR. Here comes FLICKR. Look at that south quadrant. It is being shadowed, or he is being shadowed by Jensen. And FLICKR will turn his attention back to that mid lane. Blaber slowly making his way towards this bottom lane. and the 3-man stack of T1, they didn't fancy the fight. The wave was cleared out.
But just look at how much information T1 has, right? You have full control wards on top side. You just said all of T1's members leaning down to bot side jungle, and it pretty much means C9 have no entry points into these lanes.
Yeah, absolutely, and they still don't see FLICKR. He's actually recalling in a side brush, but they don't know where he is. So Blaber is here trying to hover. It will just be the charge for the plates. Won't actually be able to knock that down, but T1 really starting to open up a very solid gold lead now, 2,000 ahead. And they just have had such a good read on everything that C9 would be looking for. They preempted the plays, whether it's Oner, whether it's Keria, whether it's FLICKR moving from the lanes. Anytime C9 would want to look for something, T1 is already there with the answer.
Now the question for me is, can C9 stem the bleeding and slow things down? This composition that they put together scales beautifully. There are a number of tools that they can use. The thing is, Cloud9 have not been able to answer Oner at all. He has gone where he pleases, done what he pleases, and taken every single person's flash pretty much across the board.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the one thing going really well right now for C9 is Jensen, has incredible farm, up at 136 CS, 12 and a half or a little bit past that into the game. So he's doing very well, has the early mythic completion, just buying him time, buying him that space. If he can really have a great team fight, they are going to have an opportunity, but Fudge is struggling in that top lane, and that's by far the biggest concern here. When you go to these carry versus carry matchups, you are skill checking these players, and Zeus is one of the hardest players in the world to do that against.
I mean, definitely, right? Coming in, everyone had him and 369 as kind of the two top names of top laners coming into the tournament, and he has shown why so far. Still though, for C9, I like what they're doing right now, to where if you at least have Zven and Blaber constantly hovering around mid lane and then matching what T1 wants to do, you can try and extend the game time as long as you aren't giving into those fights.
Absolutely. The only problem is, it's only kind of like slowing them down, right? They're never actually getting anything from their moves. So Zven and Blaber are committing so much time, and you touched on this earlier, Trevor. You're committing a lot of time to only save your top laner for a second. And then as soon as they back away, Zeus is bullying Fudge again, right? And that's the biggest issue here. Keria is playing on the side. Berserker knows they could be around, so he's going to back it up, and that means first tower very likely going the way of T1.
And Azale, I love the proactivity of T1. It has been led by Oner's jungle invades time and time again for 12 minutes. Tower first blood secured now at 14 minutes. The gold lead over 3,000. There's been a Mythic's advantage on the side of T1 for a while, but it does feel to me like their focus around slowing Blaber down in the early stages, invading the jungle, pulling them behind, and look at this itemization difference. Thrift store shopping for Berserker into Kraken Slayer, and nearly second item completed.
And I think this is exactly when T1's comp really hits their stride, right? I mean, Lissandra, Viego, we've seen this combo so many times before. One item, so much burst able to come out, the lockdowns there, and then the resets coming out for both champions. So even though C9 can slow them down, definitely gonna have to start trying to find those opportunities across map.
Now, I will say, exactly as we talked a little bit about, Jensen on this Azir, he is up 25 CS. I think some of that movement from FLICKR has allowed Jensen to make sure in this matchup he has that small advantage. But this also puts a lot of pressure on C9's mid laner. Those Emperor's divides have to be crucial. Get rid of either Aatrox or Viego. Buy time to focus down the Lissandra or the Kai'Sa, because don't forget how easy it is to start fights, and Fudge is going to get destroyed. His heart is broken. The second kill for T1, and it lands in the hands of Oner.
And it just keeps going to show how well Oner is doing so far in this matchup. He really has been the standout, bringing T1 this victory. Now they're going to get another turret down. Gold lead extends even further. 5K at 15 minutes.
I mean, it's all out of control now. They've got to find some sort of a pick. We'll see if they can find Zeus here.
The recall just finished. The solar flare missed. The pin against the wall. Zeus is going to flash for safety, and Berserker gets the kill. The LCS and Cloud9 get one, but maybe at the cost of 1.5 or 2 turrets.
Yeah, it's at the cost of so much more. You rotate your 5 members top to get a pick, but you're losing the mid tower. You're losing the bot tier 2, or at least it's getting very, very low. And this top gap has just become an absolute canyon. C9 are having to spend so many resources trying to keep Fudge in the game, but honestly, it's costing them the rest of the map, because every time they send people up there to try to help out Fudge, they're losing their jungle camps on bot side. They're losing towers everywhere else. And it's becoming a very, very difficult game to see Cloud9 clawing their way back into.
And sadly, it goes to what we set up coming out of draft, right? The fact that Fudge has leaned heavily on things like the Fiora in the previous 2 games, now playing the Jax. Honestly, maybe looking forward for C9, especially when you are in a group with people like Zeus coming in. You're going to have to lean on some weak side top laners and try and make it through these laning phases.
I mean, talking a little bit about the group, T1, Cloud9, Fnatic, they've got so much history. I mean, throw ETG in there as well. At all time, Cloud9 have played T1 4 times previously. They are 0-4 against the organization. This is the 5th time they are facing off. And this is a incredibly precarious position. Now, obviously the game has been dictated and controlled by T1 significantly. We are playing for Cloud Rift right now. And for Cloud9, again, the same thing we said 10 minutes ago remains true. You need to slow down the pace of the game. Stop letting them get ahead. A second teleport's being channeled. FLICKR's making his way in. Blaber and Spin about to arrive. So far, 2 for 2. The Ring of Frost may cost FLICKR his life. He goes golden. Gumayusi is going to be backed up by Keria. The Killer Instinct. That's 1. That's 2. Jensen pulled for a triple. Guma gets a quadra.
And we see Guma popping off. FLICKR able to buy so much time. They were able to pick up the Rift Herald as well. They're barreling down the bot lane. Zeus is also pushing in topside. They have everything.
Costa curses do not exist. T1 just obliterated that fight.
And that's about all she wrote, it feels like, for this one. T1 erased Cloud9 off the map. C9 really pushing, trying to find a play in the side lane. They can feel this game slipping away from them. But T1 was more than ready for the play. They have the extra man, and they punish Cloud9 tremendously.
Is that sort of an unforced error? Chasing us a little, feeling so much pressure, feeling so far behind, that Cloud9 threw everything out and unfortunately got countered.
I mean, it's definitely tough, right? You know, and it is an unforced error in the way that it's not as though T1 boxed them into this, but you can say T1 have put so much pressure on the map and have been really grinding them down, and that is what created that feeling of desperation. T1 has answered every play. T1 is playing the map better. T1 is playing the lanes better. And that is what really felt like it boxed Cloud9 into this situation where they feel like they've got to be desperate.
They really do. Of course, FLICKR teleporting in for a brief moment. I thought he was in trouble. Zeus about to solo Jensen. Emperor's Divide buys some time, enough for Oner to arrive. No flash available. Sand Soldiers doing work, and Zeus does not give a damn. The help of Oner sets that one up. I just briefly want to highlight, this is FLICKR's 100th game at the World Championship. Do you know how many he's won out of the 99 before? 71 of them.
I was going to say, not too surprising for the most dominant player in League of Legends history.
I mean, it's just so incredible. To put that into context, it's like almost 3/4 of his games against the absolute best players in the world. It's truly astounding, and to do it for as long as he has is amazing. Desperation time for Cloud9. They do find him knocking the wall, but FLICKR still has ult, he has flash, he has exhaust, he's in no trouble.
Self-casted, glacial path over. And the man has ice in his veins, as everyone knows. Looking to make it a 70-second win. It's 8,000 gold up, 2 dragons, 5 towers to 0. And Cloud9 are being bullied and pushed around the map. If you are just tuning in, I think a lot of credit to Oner in the early game. I think he really dictated the pace. Cloud9 never get a chance to start anything because Oner was in their face.
He was everywhere, but even after he got that first timing, going back to something that Azir was talking about earlier of choking them out, I really liked how they constantly would dedicate 3 or 4 members maybe down to bot, but have a majority of their vision up towards top side. It actually really did a great job of making it so hard for any cross-map plays to come out from C9 before they fell into such a gold deficit.
Well, to me, in so many of these games, you know, team play has been the name of the game. It's about how they, you know, facilitate each other, right? How they actually work together as a squad, how they're covering for each other's players every single time. They're one step ahead, right? You know, Keria reading and covering the gank on top. And then Oner knowing Keria needs coverage on bot for Gumayusi, so he's already there as soon as Berserker tries to go aggressive. And T1 has just done such a great job, and now 20 minutes in, they're just starting the Baron. They want to get this one over with.
Oh man, this is going so low. This is done. This is finished. They're going to finally burst it out, and C9 never get a chance to engage. The Solar Flare was held. They're down nearly 10. They are down 10,000 gold. Fudge gets chunked just a little. Glacial Path goes in. Insta-stun against the wall. Emperor's Divide as the Keeper's Verdict. Can Cloud9 win the fight?
Berserker.
Baron was secured. The stun doesn't land. Zeus escapes for now. The Buster Shot buys more time. Cloud9 are still T1's wallets.
Look at the health bars from T1 dancing in and out of the fight so incredibly well. Berserker could never get the reset. The T1 team fighting just incredible. Nearly a 12,000 gold.
What?
Guma absolutely popping off. Killer instinct goes in, Q comes out, and Berserker just stood at no chance.
What a phenomenal fight. I feel heartbroken for Cloud9. They pushed and held the line and every skill shot hit, but they are so far behind in the stats game, it ultimately didn't matter.
Yeah, they just don't have enough gold to really hammer it through. You know, I do think the fight is played out pretty well here. Berserker was free firing for most of it, but he's just so far behind that he can't actually finish anyone off. Zeus getting so much health healing there, not quite burst down. Jensen on the side getting taken out by Gumayusi, and Berserker, you know, he gets Oner very low, but then he gets a reset. FLICKR is living with no health. Keria is living with no health. They just can't quite finish off the T1 players to turn it around, and we're back to live, and we're back to watching C9 die again.
Now C9, I mean, just now really feels like nails kind of going into the coffin. Gold lead just too big.
They're already buried.
Yeah,
the coffin's sealed up.
Cloud9, I can tell you one thing. T1 took EDG down in 22 minutes and 50 seconds. So you've lasted longer than EDG, but not by much. T1 is pushing into the base as the Glacial Path is followed up. The Tomb is available, waiting for a target. T1 have got an inhibitor in the top lane, a turret in the middle lane, a turret in the bottom lane. A second inhibitor is falling, and this team looks unstoppable right now.
T1 just winning everywhere across the map. The team play has been immaculate. They have all the super minions now baroned up, and C9 not going to be able to prevent this push.
No, they're not. The Poppycopter's charging and held. A few more seconds are needed. A stun against the wall for Keria, and he taxis via Fudge to the Nexus turret. FLICKR still has that ultimate available to him. Baron, empowered super minions pouring into the base. All three inhibitors secured. The solar flare sidestepped by Guma. And T1 waltz out of the base, take 3 inhibs, 4 turrets, and explain nothing as they escape.
Well, C9 are down 15,000 gold, but bright side, there's gonna be a lot of super minions to farm up, you know?
Maybe potentially going to see Berserker actually get to buy an Infinity Edge this game, maybe.
Yeah, I think T1 just about have this one wrapped up. C9 again trying to look for picks. It's all they really can do. We'll see if they can get Oner down.
Let's find out. Not just yet. The watch is stopped. The timer is started, and Berserker still can't do it. He can't get Oner. Guma's turning his attention now towards Zven with the backup of FLICKR, and Oner's going to continue to chase forward. Zven will get melted. Berserker's going to hop over the wall and get chased down by the killer instinct of Gumayusi, and now Fudge
he wants the penta!
He's going for it. The pentakill. Guma's chasing. He's hunting. Where's the missiles? That's a leap forward. Vision is spotted. Blast cone over the wall! Keria, you monster!
Keria able to stop Fudge. They're still going for it.
Guma. Look at the super move of the Nexus. Fudge is going to escape for now. The Winions take down Cloud9.
T1 able to show such an immaculate bounce back after losing to Fnatic yesterday. Again, the team play was on point. Oner especially completely dominating the map in the early game.
72 and 28. That is the win-loss record of FLICKR at the World Championship. 0-5 Cloud9 against T1. And despite the improvements, adaptations, changes to draft, ultimately T1's early game, and I think Oner really stepping up.
I think Oner was incredible, but to me it was even more about Zeus and how good this guy was in the 1v1. Oner, Keria were able to enable him, FLICKR moving around the map, able to cover, but really it was the massive advantage that was gained through top lane by Zeus in that 1v1 that really made it a sinking ship for Cloud9, where they're trying to plug up holes, they're trying to recover, they're trying to find ways back in, but they never truly could, because all the time spent up there attacking Zeus really just bought them a little bit more time. It never actually stemmed that bleeding.
It really didn't. That one team fight that could have been different. Just a moment ago, Cloud9's faces on camera, that is tough to watch. The team is 0-3 after the first round robin, dropped those games, and that was a tough loss for Cloud9.
Yeah, I mean, especially now looking at every other team in the group sitting at 2 wins, like a pretty big hurdle to overcome if you still want to have any hopes of making it out of this group.
Yeah, I mean, it feels almost impossible at this point. There is, of course, a way to get out. But the best you can hope for now is 3 wins if you reverse sweep in the next round robin. But then 2 teams already have 2 wins, right?
Yeah.
3 teams already have 2 wins, so it only takes 2 of those to actually get to 4. Then you would be done. So if you're dropping any games whatsoever, it's pretty much all but over. Jensen, I think, was a standout for Cloud9 in this one, but this was all T1 all the time.
Gentlemen, this may not be the best timing for this, but you do know I love my quick stats, right?
Let's hear it.
I'll let you know that T1 versus EDG was the fastest game of the group stage, with T1 winning. I'll let you know that T1 secured the fastest Baron of the group stage against Cloud9. T1 breaking even more records.
Just twist the dagger. Just twist the dagger,
That was
Trevor.
the intent.
Yeah.
That was the intent, Isaac. I do think we might have
bleeding out on the ground.
We might have an updated group standings just to show you this is what we were
thank
talking
you.
about.
Yeah, I appreciate
2 and
that.
1. Can you feel the twist?
I can,
I'm
yeah.
sorry, New York. I know this is painful, but this is the state of Cloud9 0-3.
Yeah, again, just not able to show up just yet. And even if they do win the next 3, right, typically 3-3 really only guarantees you to a situation where then you're in like maybe a tiebreaker scenario.
You have
so
to hope for a tiebreaker, yeah.
Yeah, so Cloud9 and NA in tiebreakers at Worlds.
Historically not great, but I will say Evil Genius has bucked that trend.
True.
Twice in a row. Wasn't against a European team, of course, but do not deny the fact that EG stepped up in play-ins. Now, I do believe we are getting ready for an interview. We're not ready for it just yet. I think what I will say is, as we zoom out and we look at Fnatic EDG and close out this group before Analyst does, what's the key takeaways from Group A?
I mean, I would say the key takeaway is Fnatic is way more of a threat than I think a lot of people would have expected
Myself
coming into
included.
this, right? I do think that people were thinking, hey, at the end of the day, anyone could maybe compete for second, but I don't think a lot of people saw Fnatic in the hunt for that first seed in a group that is this tough, but they well and truly are. They've really stepped up. Humanoid, I think, is having one of the best individual performances of anyone in the entire event.
Yep.
It looks very, very competitive amongst those top 3, and it's just going to be Cloud9 hoping for a miracle to get back in the conversation.
Eric, I hear the interview is ready. So New York City, everyone at the Hulu Theater at Madison Square Garden, say hello to Gumayusi and Shox by Verizon post-game interview.
Thank you very much, Trevor. Indeed, and we have Jason, of course, standing by. Gumayusi, congratulations.
Thank you.
The first thing I have to ask is, are you a little bit salty that you were not able to get the pentakill in this game?
가장 먼저 여쭤봐야 됩니다. 펜타킬 안 줘서 좀 짜증났나요?
일단은 게임을 하면서 내내 팀원들한테도 이 판 뭔가 펜타각이 나올 것 같다 했는데 그걸 도와주려고 하는 사람이 뭔가 상혁이 형밖에 없었던 것 같고 상대 팀도 안 도와주더라고요. 좀 서운했던 것 같습니다.
So, I mean, even before, I was reminding my team that this is the penta angle I see in these games. But it was so sad. FLICKR was the only one helping me to get penta, and also neither of the enemies were helping me too, so.
No, they weren't helping
No.
you either. I know you have a long history with Berserker, so what was it like playing him?
또 버서커 선수와도 엮인 이야기가 굉장히 많은데 버서커 선수 상대해보니 어땠나요?
일단 바텀 구도가 약간 서로 좀 치열한 반반인 구도여서 그냥 재밌게 했던 것 같고 잘하는 선수라고 생각합니다. 민철이 화이팅!
So, yeah, I mean, looking at the bottom lane matchup, it was a very close matchup, 50-50. So I really enjoyed playing against him, and I want to say fighting Berserker.
Okay.
Support you.
Yes, maybe they can come back. Now, there has been a bit of inconsistency on the side of T1 so far at Worlds. 2 very convincing games, and then not as convincing, of course, versus Fnatic yesterday. Why do you think that inconsistency has happened so far?
T1이 사실은 지금 월즈에 와서 조금 오르락 내리락 하는 모습을 보여주고 있습니다. EDG 상대로는 굉장히 깔끔하고 압도적인 모습이 나왔지만 또 푸나틱전에서는 좀 저조했는데요. 이 이유가 뭐라고 생각하세요?
일단 저희의 실력이 그렇게 하루 만에 오르락 내리락 할 수가 없다고 생각하고 푸나틱전은 약간의 사고였다고 생각을 하고요. 그리고 푸나틱이 잘하더라고요. 푸나틱 is good. 그래가지고 앞으로 남은 3경기는 3승 0패로 마무리할 수 있도록 할 것 같습니다.
So, you know, it's hard to believe that our performance level goes ups and downs like that. You know, it's more about, having an accident in that Fnatic game, and at the same time, Fnatic is really good. But so I will make sure to get 3-0 in the remaining schedule.
Okay, about that remaining schedule, this group is a little bit crazy right now because of the top 3 teams. They have all almost beaten each other. What are your general thoughts about the group and how it is going to play out?
사실은 지금 속해 있는 조가 굉장히 상위권에 다 몰려 있습니다. 어떻게 생각하시는지 남은 일정에 대해서는 또 어떻게 생각하세요?
오늘 약간 팀원들끼리 오늘 푸나틱이 이기는 게 이득일까, EDG가 이기는 게 이득일까 이런 이야기를 나눴었는데 솔직히 뭐 상관없다고 생각하고 저희가 남은 경기를 다 이기기만 하면은 자력으로 1등이 가능한 상황이기 때문에 뭐 개의치 않다고 생각하고 있습니다.
So actually earlier today, like all the T1 players were discussing is Fnatic winning better or EDG winning better? But in the end, as long as we win all the remaining games, we can make the first seed with our own hands, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, focus on yourself. Thank you very much, Guma, and thank you, Ji-sun, as well. And we'll head over to the State Farm Analyst Desk.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shox, and congratulations to T1 and particularly FLICKR in his 100th game on the world stage. He gets the dub to go 72 and 28 all time. That's a 72% win percentage on the world stage.
And it's insane when you think about even
30 champions?
Yeah, I mean, even some of the unique champions that he has that are like the favorites for him. When you look at things like LeBlanc, right? An 82.8% win rate over the course of his career. FLICKR has been an absolute monster for so damn long, and it's why he's considered the GOAT.
And there's always also so many iconic moments in League history that he was a part of, right? Because that LeBlanc win streak you're talking about was beaten by EDG in 2015 in the last game of MSI, and moments like that I think are just always worth revisiting. He wasn't even that big of a part of this game. Like, that's the funniest part, right? He was very much a facilitator.
Yeah.
A really big swap up from
the FLICKR, what was that moment as well? Always iconic to me too.
Yes, but I like that you brought up the fact that he was a facilitator along with that 30 unique champion stat, because that's what allows him to be a facilitator. Yes, he can play the Akalis. He can also hop on the Lissandra and just spoon feed kills over to Gumayusi.
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely insane. This is why FLICKR has just been so nuts for. It's just that you can have him pop off on the Akali where he's like, okay, cool, I understand exactly how I need to push mid, how I need to get in position, how I need to set myself up for success in these fights. But he's also hyper aware of, as you can see in these sorts of situations, how he can set up his team. Where is Keria, Gumayusi positioned? Is Keria in a position to follow up? He's so hyper aware of all these different things on the map. And we often talked about him as kind of being the puppet master as well in a lot of these situations and helping coordinate that early game.
And it would be me if I didn't also shout out Zeus. Almost did the most damage in the game on the Aatrox. And really, I think, made it very tough for Fudge to play the game, because we were talking about it, Jet.
Yeah.
It didn't really feel like there was a good answer for C9, because I did like the drops a lot more, but it still wasn't enough.
Absolutely. This was a bit of a departure for the T1 drafts that we've seen previously. It's a lot more standard, a lot more just generally strong team fighting, and they played a lot more reserved. And Cloud9 did play a team composition with good lane prio from mid lane. They got a counter pick top lane, even though Fudge wasn't able to execute it and lost lane pretty heavily, and they had pretty strong engage. So it's a really, to me, like hard loss to take because they just weren't good enough, right? So there's no scapegoat here. There's no Fiora to point to.
I was gonna say, that's the scariest thing for me when we preface this whole game saying we want to see a change in the draft. We get a number of those changes we're asking for, and yet the result is the same. So it's gonna be a tough one for C9 to stomach. As we now know, their destiny is not in their own hands with 3 teams at 2-1. So they're going to have to rely on some other stuff breaking down in the group if they want a shot out.
I have a possible New York comparison. I was thinking about this before.
Bring it
right
on.
Now, NA feels a little bit like the Knicks.
No.
I'm not sure how that's going to land. There's positives and negatives. So just bear with me. They're telling me to toss it.
It's all right. I
really want to bear with you.
Listen,
the Knicks fans and the New York fans are some of the best fans in the world.
Yeah, that's true.
People love playing in New York, and it's not like they can never win again. You just know it's going to be a while. So I think there is something enchanting.
Boo this man! Boo this man!
It's just how it feels. You're still going to go to Knicks games.
Yeah.
You're still going to watch NA.
Now it feels like we're at a Knicks game. All right.
Do you want a shovel?
They don't seem to have it this year.
You're right. Right now, it doesn't look good for North America. We'll see if they can turn it around. There's still some room to go, but that window is narrowing. Now, if you're like me and you like oysters, check out CTPC Flying Oysters Pick The World Is My Oyster by Le Serafim. as the song that represents their playstyle on the official LoL playlist on Spotify. Take a listen. We'll see you right back here for CFO versus RNG after the break.
When the Knicks win,
it's
good.
really
Let it go.
2 for 2, the Ring of Frost may cost FLICKR his life. He goes golden. Gumayusi is going to be backed up by Keria. The killer instinct. That's 1. That's 2. Jensen pulled for a triple. Guma gets a quadra. The stun doesn't land. Zeus escapes for now. The Buster shot buys more time. Cloud9 are still alive, but not for long. Oner's going to continue to chase forward. Zven will get melted. Berserker's going to hop over the wall and get chased down. The Winions take down Cloud9.